And welcome to Arts Play Radio. Just waiting to be joined by our fellow guests, and then we'll get ready to go. It's episode 4, and we will be chatting with all the regulars, including the man who is about to join me in just a moment. It's the fantastic and magnificent Mr. Eskimo Hito, who's on the line. Where are we? Approve there, approve there. There we go. And we are go. And Arts Play Radio, episode 4, that's right. It's our show where we talk to creators and artists about how they create and what it means to make art in the 21st century. And joining me, as usual, is co-host Eski. Eski, how are you tonight?
I'm really well, man. How are you?
Yeah, good. Very good. Typical thing where I log on to this, kicks me completely out of Twitter, and then I have to quickly scramble to get back in. So, yeah, going pretty much as well as usual.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Par for the course, man.
Yeah. Well, let's not fanny around too much, and let's introduce our guest for this week. It's the amazing and brilliantly talented Epic Thundercat. Welcome.
Hey,
everybody. How goes it?
We are exceptionally well, thank you. Really glad to have you on board from all the way over on the other side of the US. And I don't know if we can do a little introductory thing. Like, if you could tell our listeners who you are to whatever extent you're comfortable, and how you kind of describe the sort of art you create.
Yeah, so I have been a lifelong artist, all my life. I started out with watercolor, and in 2020 ended up finding digital art, which drastically changed how I do things and my methods. I absolutely fell in love with glitch art, honestly. And that's kind of what I do now, along with like illustration. So my art's a little bit different. I take a lot of illustration type foundation, and then I apply them with glitch work. So I've kind of coined the title illustrative glitchwave, just because, again, it's so different. But a lot of it's done in Procreate, and it's definitely my passion. So.
Awesome. Yeah, well, it's definitely distinctive. It's got a vibe to it that you don't necessarily, I don't know, it's unique in that it's got that feeling, that glitchy feeling, but there's a strong, that illustrative underpinning is really sort of holds it together. I was going to ask, did you study art at all? Did you have that in your background, or was it just something that you've always done?
So I started in college at around age, I guess, I had to be 18 or 19, one or the other. I started with my associate's degree, and it was art related. However, I had assumed back then, because obviously NFTs didn't exist, it was just too hard to survive. So my major was psychology, and I have a bachelor's in psychology, and then I have a master's of science and social work and organizational leadership.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was in school for a long time, but it did start as art and then kind of geared towards other things. But now I'm finding my roots and like diving into this creative aspect of myself that like was always there, but it was more difficult to really throw myself at.
right. And what really strikes me about your work is that it's very specific to you. And you said that you've only started getting into the digital realm as of 2020. Was that right?
Yeah. So I got my iPhone.
Right. So did you have like, has your work, what was your work like pre, 2020? Because it seems like a fully realized voice you have.
I have a foundation with watercolor.
Right.
I had I have some idea of how to establish a style. And I think for me as an artist, one of my goals, and this may not be the same for all artists, but one of my goals is to establish, like, I want people to be able to see my art and go, that's it. Like, I know who made that. Even if I don't have a signature on it, because the blockchain is a signature, which is also strange, but I don't really feel the need to put one on my art because we have the blockchain now. And I want people to be able to personally identify when they see my work, which I think is working. Initially, when I came into the scene, my very first project was back on an open market. I have a weird origin story. I can get into that later, but my first project was Monsters of Mind, which was it was on OpenSea, and that was July 2021. And if you look at that, it's very different. It's a lot more new. And I feel like back then my style, while it's shaping where I am today, there's certain things that weren't established yet in that project. So you can kind of see like my evolution as an artist, working with digital art.
Right. Sorry, you're breaking up. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Sorry.
Sorry. I think my connection is bad. I mean, yeah, I can. You can definitely see a through line. I mean, it's pretty. Yeah. I mean, I think it's absolutely phenomenal what you're doing. And as far as the blockchain goes, do you think we've asked a lot of artists who have come on? How do you feel? I mean, you're so prolific. Like, how does it work? Do you feel that you have to sometimes take a step back from the work and do you feel that I'm trying to roundabout ways, do you feel that you should be putting like a space in between your work, or do you just feel when it comes to you, let's put it out?
It kind of depends. So historically, I've usually always sold out, even during the beginning of the bear market. Regardless of how much I put out. And I would do like these really fun sniping events, is what I called them, where the floor would be a certain amount and I'd price them below the floor slightly and I'd put them out for like real quick. Like it would be, I'd announce it maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes before. And then people would come and snipe my work and grab it and then hold it. Obviously, I have a lot of diamond-headed holders. And so I feel like a lot of these like engagement methods really help shape like community, and really push my art into like these new levels that I have today. And I will say it's been more challenging in this bear market, but I still do sell every couple of days, which I think is pretty decent given I think quite a few artists aren't making sales right now and haven't been since October of 2021 even sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. I just NFT space. I love community engagement. I love the psychology behind marketing. I enjoy the creative aspect. I just feel like my creative potential has finally been tapped into to its fullest, and I've never had this before in my life. So I love it here.
I love it. That's awesome to hear. And as far as inspiration goes, what is it? Is this? Are you always inspired by different things, or is there one kind of? I need to find a better word for message. But you know what I mean? Is there like an overarching element you have that goes through all your work?
I think for me, a lot of it involves channeling my emotions and processing a lot of feelings. I know that other artists have a similar method of creating a lot of the time. But like with my first project, I worked really, really hard to channel those feelings as I would paint. And then I would kind of apply color schemes as it's hard to explain, but like emotions would kind of come out as color, which is why a lot of my work has a lot of bright colors and vibrancy to it, because a lot of the emotions change as I'm painting and then colors will change. And that was kind of the foundation of my art. I started creating as a kid because of some childhood trauma, and it's continued on from there. And I feel like it's helped shape my art into what it is today.
And are you creating only in digital now? Do you still got to sort of revert back to doing physical stuff as well?
Not since I started. I just love my iPad. So simple. Like, I can just pull out the iPad. Everything's right there. It used to be before that I had, and I still carry my backpack with my iPad, but I had a backpack that had all of my art supplies. Like I had these watercolor markers, which I still have, along with paper and stuff. I would carry it everywhere. I'll draw weddings, I'll draw honestly anywhere. It doesn't matter. I draw all the time. So it's just more convenient to carry an iPad versus, like 100 pieces of art supplies with me.
Absolutely, yeah, I can relate. And when you're creating now, like on a daily basis, what does that process look like? Are you in a space? Do you have a studio space, or are you out in cafes? How do you go about it?
So I do have my own room that has a desk, but I've never used it for drawing ever. Like, it's weird. Usually when I draw, it's when I'm watching TV or I'm multitasking a lot of the time. And so it'll be like in the evening when I'm laying down, getting ready for bed and things like that. Or if I'm out with friends or I'm doing something in the community, I'll just start drawing, which is probably weird. I don't know. People will walk by and look at my art sometimes, but I've gotten used to it at this point. I don't know. It's just whenever the inspiration hits, I have to. It's like impulsive. It's like a part of me now at this point.
So is there no set process in that sense, or do you have a means of getting into a piece when you start it?
It depends. So sometimes it'll be pieces that I really plan out and it's very emotionally charged. Sometimes I don't know. It's like my brain is just always on in creative mode. That's just like how I function. So for my job, I work in the government and in social services. And I had some coworkers tell me that I should go do art probably because I'm too creative for the field. So I think that's just kind of how my brain works. I don't know. And I have ADHD. And so when I do process, I process very quickly, which is also why I carry my art supplies with me, because I'll get like these blips of inspiration and then I'll just do it. And I'll start like the skeleton of it, and then later on when I get home, I'll color it or I'll add to it as time goes on. There's not always a huge process, but it's still a process. My brain is still active. It's still going. And I'm still always thinking about like how to do the work that I'm doing. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It kind of depends on the piece.
Does any of it start with just simple like doodling?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes a lot of the time, most of the time. It used to be more often. I didn't even know. Usually I don't always know what the outcome is going to be. I'll just start, painting, drawing, whatever. And then things just kind of form as they form. And I like this. I like free forming stuff because if you look, like some of my art has these really weird, sketchy, kind of spastic lines in the background, like in my PFP here. That's because a lot of that is like, I have an anxiety disorder and I'll like pull that out and like, just like start kind of like scribbling on my pieces on purpose. That'll kind of bring like this different life to it. And it's like putting a piece of my emotion into the art.
Sure. I find that fascinating because I've always found your work very, very vibrant and it's very exciting, and the colors are, they're, what I'd say, happy. They're very exciting, but there is that claustrophobia almost in a lot of your work, and there's a lot of. I find there's like a lot of monsters. Am I projecting a bit too much into that?
No, it's true. So when I was younger, I used to do the whole anime thing. As you can see, it's kind of still in my work. But when I became a teenager, I got embarrassed that I was drawing anime for a while. And so I also liked monsters. It was my second favorite thing to draw because I felt like there's no limitations on the creativity. You can do anything with a monster. And so I would draw these monsters and kind of develop my own little creatures. And then as I progressed and got older, I started incorporating these like anime-ish elements back into my work because that was kind of the foundation. And it's kind of like all of these things have like formed my current style, which is really fascinating because I have the emotional aspect. I have kind of the illustration. I have monsters. I have all of these things kind of being put into my pieces now that were like, I don't know, like phases of my art as I grew.
That's really fascinating, and I guess it leads to the question that we've been asking everybody really, and it's kind of central to the APR kind of line of inquiry, which is how do you know when you've finished a piece?
Um, you know, when I was less skilled, and I think this is really common with people who are newer, you can tend to sorry, I can't talk. You tend to overwork it, and it's hard to know when to stop. But as I've gotten, I don't know, I get more refined in my own way. I can just tell it's like a feeling. Since I channel a lot of my emotions into my pieces, it feels like when it's done, and I can feel almost like this like outlet of it just feels right, and like the emotions have been established, the piece has been established, and this feels right. And I know some of my stuff is messy-ish, and I call it that on purpose, because I'm projecting so many feelings into it, especially with the line work that I do. But that's on purpose. I usually want to convey something in my pieces so that the viewer can feel like. I really liked how claustrophobia was mentioned. I actually hadn't thought about that, but it's true. And I think it's because when you're dealing with mental illness and things like that, it does feel claustrophobic. You can't really control the emotions you have all of the time, and you're going to have them and you have to experience them. And it's kind of just my way of releasing onto the paper, and hopefully someone will resonate with those feelings that I'm putting onto canvas.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm someone who deals with anxiety as well, and it's really, although I couldn't, claim to know your story, but it is something very satisfying to see that there is chaos there. Of course, you can see it, but it's something that's really, it's been harnessed and been honed in a really positive way, and I think I applaud you. Like it's you've really got. It looks like you've really got to something in your work. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's, I mean, I'm hoping that some people will resonate and feel heard from my art. I probably need to talk more about I appreciate the space because I probably need to talk more about my process too, to make things make even more sense. It's nice because I feel like as we're talking too, I'm like processing in a different way, as I'm conversing how I process. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think it is a valuable thing that the sort of conversation that you might feel is maybe too inside or too pretentious, but actually you kind of end up getting to the heart of what you're doing in a way you can't really if it just sits there. I was going to ask a really practical question that is always interesting to us, which is, are you listening to music while you draw? Are you working in silence? What's going on around you?
It depends. I do love music. Sometimes it'll be lo-fi. Sometimes it'll be like my favorite music is stoner metal. And then I really,
hell yes.
Yeah, we just saw Trivium recently. They came here like 2 days ago. It was so good, which isn't really stoner metal, but their lineup had a bunch of stoner metal bands. It was fantastic. I feel like that music kind of embodies my art in a way too, because it's like relaxing, but it's dark. And I feel, I don't know, it puts me in the mood. So I listen to that, and then sometimes lo-fi, and then sometimes it's honestly I'm just like watching TV while I'm drawing, because I can't focus on TV at all. I really can't. And so drawing is also my way of staying present in the external environment, because it's giving me something to do. I'm processing while I'm also engaging with people and other things. So it's kind of, I guess art is, and I did this in school too when I was growing up, art is just kind of how I engage my external environment as well. So, yeah.
I mean, I remember, Ike, you were saying something about your writing, how you're listening to music, but you find that lyrics are kind of, they're kind of imposing on a process. Are you ever, and this is for Thundercat, are you ever wary of you're going to project too much of the music into your work?
No, not too much, because I think it's just become part of me that I mean, art's just what I do. I don't know. It's like all of my life experiences, it's okay for me to funnel a lot of those into my creative process. I think it's nice to be, I guess, surrounded by other creatives in a way. And when you're listening to music and you're engaging with any sort of creativity, it's like you're with another artist in a way. And while it's not a collaboration and you don't know them, you're still putting yourself in that creative process and that mood to create a piece. I do feel like lyrics can take away, it's weird, but I feel like they can take away from, okay, so I also like music that's in other languages because I feel like the voice becomes an instrument instead of lyrics in themselves. I find it really beautiful. I also like to listen to things like that, which, I don't know, it's almost like listening to an instrumental piece, but it's not. I don't know, but I do appreciate writing too. And I started doing the Tumblr thing. I don't know if you guys have seen, but people are starting to use Tumblr now, artists specifically, to process and to communicate. And I feel like it's really opened up this creative writing avenue that we've lost here on Twitter. And it's been really pleasant to just go over there and kind of spill everything and communicate more.
That's cool. That's fascinating, actually. Like that has sort of re-entered the conversation. It felt like Tumblr sort of wasn't a thing for a while. So yeah, we'll have to dive back into there, Eski.
Yeah, there's a movement to revitalize it because it's very art-centered. It's really interesting that we've settled on Twitter being the primary mode of, I guess, transportation, if you will, because there isn't a lot of creative, or I guess outwardly creative. You can't really do much on here. You can't decorate it. You can't add music. You can't, I don't know. And then it like limits writing, right? So we're like forgetting a whole different creative process and we're like limiting it. When we could be using a different platform, which I love. I do love Twitter. I love Twitter for some things, for marketing, for meeting people, but Tumblr it's just a different experience.
That's really interesting.
It's pleasant.
That's the first I've actually heard of this, of it coming back into, because I remember I play in a lot in different bands and we do a lot of promotion of social media. And I remember I ran a couple of Tumblr pages back in the day and I was told by management and all sorts of people just completely forget about it because it's just used for, this sounds preposterous, but like you just said, it's just used for writing and teenagers would write their angsty little, things on there. And it wasn't actually getting to any like the straight, the instant gratification that, Twitter gives or Instagram gives. It takes a little bit of time, which was bizarre to me because that seems like exactly what you need to give these things. You need to give time to them. So it's really exciting that like actual writing is coming back. Who would have thought writing?
Well, I mean, I feel like because we go to school and we can write, we take it for granted now. And it feels like on Twitter, maybe this is just my perception or my algorithm issue, but it feels like if you write a long thread, it almost punishes you for writing in a way. Like it kind of processes it as like multiple posts rather than like one long post. And so there's a lot of discouragement with conversation, and we're trying to build something. We're trying to build Web3. And so we're going to need to have heavier conversations about how do we do that? How do we onboard more artists? How do we onboard collectors? How do we create these communities in the external environment outside of what's going on here on Twitter alone and expand on that? Because we want Web3 to be sustainable for the future. And these are conversations we have to have because otherwise it's not going to be. And so I don't know. It's been a pleasant switch. There's about, I would say like 300 artists so far. It's very new, just a couple days ago, new. Maybe 4 or 5 actually. But I think it's going to become more of a movement as it goes on because, again, we need, and even if collectors don't necessarily go over there, like artists themselves need to have these conversations and communicate and know, I don't know, like there's something less isolating and something beautiful about the community aspect when artists are doing creative tasks within their groups and their communities and with their friends. It's a different feeling and it's less lonely while we're trying to market.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we're like in this moment where like the support from in these communities are, to me, it's like unheard of, like people think, the internet gets a lot of bad, quite rightly so at some points, but gets a lot of stick for being not supportive. But I really think that like that it's really birthing some pretty supportive groups. You know, like Web3 has just become this incredibly supportive place for artists, which I think is incredibly exciting.
Well, honestly, if anyone can revitalize Tumblr, it's going to be Web3.
Yeah. Well said.
Crazier things have been done.
For sure.
So what are you trying to do you think in terms of your ambitions? Where would you like to be in a year or two?
You know, it's interesting because I went to that concert the other day and I was looking around and it was at a small, more intimate venue. It was very, very personable. And I thought about it, and I've spent the whole last, I would say, year and some months, you know, marketing heavily and trying to make it to this almost like this, I don't want to call it fake, but like fake number of like what my goal would be, right? So like I would love to have a sale of like 100,000, right? Because I see this and it happens and it's possible, and I want to figure out how to do that. It's like a puzzle for me. But also I started thinking about it, and the whole concept of a cult classic, and I posted about this the other day, but I don't know how appreciated it was. But the idea of like a cult classic, like the way that those movies impact their communities so heavily is so beautiful that honestly, in a few years from now, if I just had that type of vibe where people resonate heavily with my work and it means something to them, and becomes almost something, I guess, culturally important to the space, I would be okay with that. And it's not to say that I don't want these huge sales. I do. I think that's helpful, and we all need money to market. That's just part of it. It means it's a business. But having these intimate communities that are so heavily impacted, I don't know. Art is about impacting the viewer, and I think emphasizing that in my art would be, it's just beautiful. And the band that I saw, I mean, I'm sure you guys know who Trivium is since you like metal. They have 300,000 followers on Twitter, but it's like their community is so wholesome and so kind, and like it was a different experience than going to a much larger venue. It was just very pleasant. And I would like something similar, I suppose, to that, only if you translate that into Web3 and communities here in this space.
I think we said it before. It's that punk rock aesthetic. It's I feel that we're coming back to, you know, like there seems to be very little separation between artists and you know, an audience.
I love that perspective, because you kind of have to be a little bit, you know, punk rock-ish, I guess, here in the space, because we're fighting against such a huge backlash against Web3. The people here and the artists here are actual leaders in the space, and that goes for everybody here, whether they've had no sales or whether they've had a bunch of sales. We are all leaders, and we're shaping this thing that's being created right now. And I honestly believe it's going to be historically relevant in the art scene at some point in 10, 20 years from now, whatever. It's going to be something so beautiful and so amazing. And we're part of that. We did that. Like, that's so rad.
Right on. Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Hey, listen, we really appreciate having your time today. I know you've got to run to an appointment soon, so don't want to sort of keep you on for too long. So just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today. And we'd love to have you back on again sometime if you're up for that. I
would love to. I wonder, how would you feel about, I could ask some artists if you want to do like a community one too, maybe. I know you interview artists, but I have quite a few followers, but not as many as some other people that I know. I could always ask some people and see if they'd be willing to come hang out during one of these too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we share these around as recorded things afterwards as well on YouTube and on SoundCloud. So if people want to listen to it, we'll fire the links over to you.
Oh, that's so cool. Yes, please share. I would love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And anyone who hasn't, you should definitely check out Epic Thundercat on Twitter and over on Tumblr, which we'll have to do ourselves. Before we go, I wanted to remind you that us, as in Cool Dudes Club, will be hosting a event at NFT London on the 4th of November. And that's at the Market Tavern Mayfair. And people who own art by Safety First will get are on the allow list for the first bunch of tickets. Check out Lux Ether and the Cool Dudes Club Twitter for more details, but we'd love to meet some of you there. Safety will be doing some artwork, and we'll get some other artists along as well, and free drinks and possibly snacks also. Anyway, Eski, thank you again for joining me tonight, and as always, and
thank you so much. It was a real pleasure.
We will talk to you again next week when we are speaking with Andre Deco Life, Brazilian in London, who will be at NFT London, and you'll probably get to meet him if you come along to our event. All right, thanks very much, everyone, and
awesome.
Enjoy the rest of your evening/day. Cheers.
Good night.